This book is called Leprechaun Gold, and it's written by Teresa Bateman. So thank you, Teresa, for this very, very sweet story. It's one of my favorite leprechaun stories. And reading with us is our very own sweet little leprechaun. Are you ready to hear this story? Oh, you bet he is. Let's get started. Okay. Donald O'Dell was a good-hearted man who could do a bit of anything if he put his hand to it. He took work where he found it and earned enough to keep food on the table and a roof over his head. He cared little for wealth, and he did not seek it. True, he lacked a wife and family, and this caused him some sorrow, but there was time enough for starting a family in the future. Still, when he saw a wife give her husband a loving smile or a child hold his father's hand, his heart felt emptiness that the work could not fill. So he works hard, but he's just missing a very important thing, a family. One day, as Donald was walking through a high meadow on his way home, he was startled to hear a cry for help. Hurrying toward the sound, he soon found himself by a fallen tree that bridged a bubbling stream. There, trapped in the water by the tree's branches, was a leprechaun. He must have been crossing the stream and slipped in. Now the water slapped over the leprechaun's head, and between gasping for air and yelling for help, he was nearly spent. Donald O'Dell stepped out onto a key branch and snatched the leprechaun from the tree's grasp. The poor little wee man was wheezing. Donald O'Dell shrugged out his sweater and wrapped the leprechaun in its warm woolen folds. Then, tucking him under an arm, he hurried home. Look at that little leprechaun. It was only a moment's work to kindle a fire and put the kettle on. Soon the leprechaun was sitting before the blaze with his fingers curled around a steaming cup. "It's a kind-hearted man you are entirely, Donald O'Dell," the leprechaun declared, "and you'll find me properly grateful. The saving of a leprechaun's life means a gift of leprechaun gold." If he expected thanks, however, the leprechaun was sorely disappointed. "Oh, I have enough for my needs," Donald replied. "You can keep the gold for yourself." The leprechaun was dumbfounded. Never before had a man refused leprechaun gold. He pleaded with Donald O'Dell. He debated the issue and finally demanded that the man take the gold and be done with it. But Donald would not be swayed. Finally, the leprechaun prepared to leave. "But be assured," he told Donald O'Dell, "you'll accept the gold, one way or another." This is the first book that the leprechaun is really wanting someone to take his gold. Oh, what happened here? The next morning, Donald found a pot of gold on his doorstep. He shook his head, carried it to the nearest fairy mound, and he left it there. That afternoon, he reached for his coat, only to find the pockets were weighed down with gold coins. He shrugged into the coat, walked to the fairy mound, and turned his pockets inside out. He left all the gold with the fairies. So it went for the next week. Donald found gold everywhere he turned. In his shoes, pots, wagon, even his breakfast porridge. The path to the fairy mound soon grew well worn. Then the day arrived when Donald O'Dell went from dawn to dusk without seeing a single gold coin, which he rightfully earned rethatching a roof. "I expect the leprechaun has given up at last," he decided, feeling rather lonely. He was missing all the the gold from the leprechaun, even though he didn't want it. All right, let's see. The next morning, however, Donald had other things to worry him. When he went to milk his cow Letty, he found the latch to the bry undone and the cow was gone entirely, even though he was sure he had latched that barn door securely the night before. There was nothing for it. He snatched a rope and took off, following the animal's tracks as they led through the woods and meadows, hills and hollows. Indeed, he spent the whole day following after this beast. Night swept in with the evening rain, and Donald could no longer see the cow's tracks. It looked like he would have to spend a damp night in the dark woods. He sighed and was about to settle under a tree when an unexpected breeze whipped a branch across his chest, turning him to one side. From this new angle he spied a light through the woods. Hurrying toward it, he soon saw that it was a window, lamplit and warm. He pounded on the door. When it was opened, his mouth dropped open as well. Standing in the doorway was a beautiful woman. She smiled warmly, and glancing at the rope in his hands, she said, "I don't suppose you might be the owner of that lovely cow that wandered into my barn just a few hours ago?" Donald nodded. The woman waved him inside. "It's cold, you must be, and wet and worn out as well. Come away in and warm yourself by my fire. I'll feed you dinner, for your cow is already taken care of, and the two of you can spend the night in my barn." Delighted, Donald accepted her invitation. Over dinner he discovered that her name was Maureen, and she had lived there for several years, tending to her old granny. Now Maureen was alone. Donald's heart was touched, but he found it hard to hear her words over the sound of dripping water falling into various pots scattered across the floor. Look at all these pots. Oh, do you notice anything in that pot that's collecting water? Look at all these pots. It's a sneaky little leprechaun. I wonder what he's up to. "It's the strangest thing," Maureen said. "This roof's been sound for years with never a problem, but this evening for some reason it began leaking horribly. I expect I'll have to find someone with skill to rethatch it for me, but I don't know how I'll afford it." "Ah," Donald O'Dell replied with a smile, "consider the job done, and paid in full as well for your hospitality, this fine meal, and the good company. I'll do the rethatching for you tomorrow, and gladly." Maureen smiled, and that was that. That night Donald O'Dell slept in the barn with Letty, and he was up at the crack of dawn fixing Maureen's roof. Oh, she hitched up her skirts and joined him. Oddly, the old thatch didn't look too bad. The thatch is the roof. Still, by the time Donald O'Dell was finished, the only leak left was in his heart. He was taken entirely with Maureen. Oh, look at them working together. Teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? Let's see. They courted for a month or two. Courted means they dated. They courted for a month or two, and then they got married. Donald O'Dell was happier than he had ever been before. And not even Leprechaun's gold could have been better than this, he remarked to Maureen as they sat outside their cottage together. She hurried as the night grew cold, and Donald went to check the barn. "So, are you happy?" came a small voice. "Oh, I am," Donald replied upon discovering the leprechaun sitting on a railing in the brae. "But I'm surprised that I am seeing you. I thought I had offended you and your honor by refusing your gold." The leprechaun smiled. "And do you think cows wander free and branches blow and roofs leak without a wee bit of help? You've been paid in full, Donald O'Dell, for saving my life." Donald looked puzzled. "But I've taken no gold from you," he insisted. "There's more than one kind of gold in this world," the leprechaun said, tipping his hat. "It's a way I'll be then," he continued. "Give my best to your bride Maureen. She's a woman with hair of gold and a heart to match." And with a wink and a laugh, the leprechaun was gone. So look at that. Oh, the leprechaun helped lead him to Maureen. That was so sweet. Did you like that book, Leprechaun? That was a good little leprechaun love story. So see, some people want more than gold. Some people just want love and a happy heart. And that is what Donald O'Dell wanted. And he got. That was cute. I like that book. Well, I hope you enjoyed reading with us. Come and read soon. Bye.